Where are we with these elections recount, and specifically, what would the Guyanese people look forward to for the next 5 to 7 days, sir?
Well, where we are at now, we have finished counting 9 of 10 regions. The count is purely now on Region 4, or what we call in electoral terms, District 4. We were able to complete today 83 boxes, the majority of which were boxes for Region 4. I anticipate that we are working towards a completion of the count per se, not later than, but it could be earlier than the 8th. Once that count is finished, we are looking to the receipt of a report from the Chief Elections Officer, which is comprised of 2 parts: the tabulations and the summary of the observation reports. The GECOM will then deliberate on that, and based on that deliberation, will instruct the Chief Elections Officer to prepare his final report. Once that final report is prepared, we have no more than 3 days to come to the nation and to give our pronouncement.
Great. Well, that looks simple enough, as it did on March 2nd as well. And thank you for that report, sir. Some questions, if you don't mind, Mr. Alexander. With regards to the point you made here about the report. So the CEO will prepare a report that reflects the tabulations and that summarizes the observations. Yes. Do you envisage, does Mr. Vincent Alexander envisage an investigation into those observations from GECOM?
The observations have different aspects to them. There are some of them which are evidence of administrative problems on the face. Mm-hmm. There are some of them which are evidence of what may be considered electoral malfeasance. Insofar as the electoral malfeasance are concerned, in the main, I think they surround the possibility that people who are or were overseas were impersonated, and that people who died may have been voted for. Mm-hmm. Now, in relation to those 2 matters, the onus is on those who are making the allegation to submit evidence. If they do submit that evidence, when we consider the observation report, that evidence, I think, will be considered at the same time. The administrative matters, some of them, I think we'll have to hold until the end of this process for determination.
Okay. And Mr. Alexander, do you see do you see a potential that yourself and your fellow commissioners may be convinced that these elections were not credible?
Well, I don't want to make a call at this time. Mm-hmm. But I would certainly say that we have to look at the magnitude of the information submitted, and on that basis, make a determination as to whether we think elections were credible or not.
Uh-huh. And I think if I may, I think that basis will be more dependent on the magnitude of the problems with regards to the dead and migrant persons being impersonated.
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yes. A question for the Commissioner. Good evening, Mr. Commissioner. How are you doing?
Good evening.
I want to ask you, in some quarters, people are thinking that maybe the observations, that GECOM is not supposed to be looking into that. Is it the take of GECOM at this point in time, the commission proper, that it has to take that into consideration?
Well, I don't know that we would have provided for observations in the process without a purpose. So the fact that the order for this recount, so-called, provided for observations means that we did in fact have some purpose in mind. And the order, it also specifies that we are addressing the question of the credibility of the count, of the recount. So
Right.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
the integral to the process.
Correct. So, Mr. Alexander, the other question I have for you is, if let us say you and your fellow commissioners, all six of you, have a which is hardly likely, but would agree that there are some serious problems with what has been pointed out in the observation report. I think the nation is looking at the six of you as, three on one side, three on the other. The six of you will never agree. And so ultimately, Madam Chairman would have to make a decision. Sir, my question to you, given also your legal knowledge and your years of experience, is the chairman obliged, is the commission obliged to make a declaration at the end of this process?
I would say we are largely in uncharted waters. I see where we are in some regards in terms of history of electoral practices in Ghana. We are in uncharted waters. And so, in some regards, this is a matter which people will still be addressing their mind to. What are our options? What are our options in such a circumstances? So even me, I would not be finite at this time about that matter. We are in uncharted waters, but we are faced with the issue of if not credible, then what?
Okay, because the constant thinking that seems to be emerging is that one of the political parties, one of the main political parties in the process, has had emerging noise being made about too many problems in these elections and it cannot be credible. And the other party opposing to that party would be saying, well, whatever problems there are, it's above and beyond because GECOM cannot and should not investigate itself. What is Commissioner Alexander's take on that, sir?
Well, I don't know that what GECOM is doing is an investigation of itself. Let's ask the question differently. In the normal course of an election, GECOM can be appealed to for a recount. Is that a recount an investigation of itself? The law provides for that.
Yes.
Of course, this goes beyond that normal recount, but the fact of the matter, I'm saying that there is precedent of GECOM by law reviewing declarations made by GECOM. So I don't quite agree that it is a question of GECOM passing judgment on itself in contradiction to legal provisions, because the law as it is does provide for GECOM to review its own declarations. Of course, the level at which that occurs is different.
Correct.
Because even in this instance, this recount is not being done at the level at which the original count was done. This recount is being done at the level of the commissions, the commission supervised recount. Recounts are normally done. The count is normally done in the first instance at the lowest level, at the level of the polling station. Declarations are normally done at the level of the districts. And a final declaration is done at the level of the commission. We have not gotten to the point where the commission has entered into that process of making any determination. Okay. We're at the point where determinations were made at the lower level, and the commission now, which sits above. So in a sense, the commission is not reviewing itself in that regard, because the organization has tiers. And so it is the highest tier now reviewing what was done at a lower tier.
But to get to the the allegations of impropriety, to get to the allegations of people impersonating others, wouldn't that be outside of the scope of the investigation that GECOM could do within itself? The reason for asking this, sir, if you look back within the last 94 days, you would find in the first instance, when there was a problem with the declaration, the commission did not step forward. In fact, appellants went and had the court step into the process to say, listen, we need a proper, or we need you guys, we need Mr. Mingo to comply with 84.2. Another instance occurred when the stakeholders in the process agreed to have a recount. The courts again step in and say, hold, wait, let us examine whether recount is acceptable under the law or not. So in both instances, it went outside of the commission to the courts of Guyana to make a determination. Why would this particular instance now be left to the commission?
Well, two things. The court itself made it clear that they couldn't supervise how GECOM did its work. What they merely had to do in the circumstance in which they intervened was to say to GECOM, do your work as prescribed by law. But we will not supervise, and we will not tell you how to do your job, but do your job as prescribed by law. So that's what the court, in a sense, said. Where we're at, we are at a point of a recount. Once GECOM is doing that within the ambits of the law, given the previous decisions of the court, then the court is not likely to step in once there's no basis on which you can say GECOM is not doing what is authorized. GECOM, by virtue of Article 162 of the Constitution and Section 22 of the Election Amendments Act, has prescribed what it wishes to do in the circumstance, and is doing just that.
Okay. I want to just take you back to the parties, the stakeholders in this process, sir. Does Commissioner Alexander feel that whatever the declaration that is being made, that the parties will have to accept, and thereafter all the possibilities are within law as to what they could do? Do you feel that the stakeholders are going to accept the decision that the commission will emerge with?
To be very frank, the way in which the stakeholders are lining up, I rather suspect that one way or the other, one or the other stakeholder may seek to have the court intervene in the matter.
And this is intervene before or after the potential swearing in your view, sir?
Well, I didn't refer to swearing in.
Oh, yeah. Well, intervene means yes, intervene.
I didn't refer to swearing in.
Correct.
I referred to GECOM's pronouncement.
Correct, declaration. Okay. So
as a consequence of the report.
I don't know if you would have been made aware of this, sir, but I believe one of the parties, one of the stakeholders would have approached the courts within the last week to already intervene in the process. Are you aware of any such moves?
I have heard rumors, but I'm not aware of the actual act. I've heard talk about that, but I'm not aware of the actual act.
Okay.
So, for example, I don't think GECOM has been served with any documents from the court, not to my knowledge.
And a quick question here, Commissioner, a cursory look. Does Vincent Alexander believe that there's enough at this point in time in terms of observation and other claims for the elections, for the elections to be declared null and void?
Two things I want to say about that. One, I have not been exposed to sufficient information to make a judgment, because we have not yet, as commissioners, been exposed to the observation report. So in some regards, it's early days for me to make that comment. Secondly, depending on what point we're at, I have difficulties with the terminology northern border. You can only annul something which has been declared. And so I have difficulties with those terminologies, northern border.
Take that, Leonard. Roel, we have Mr. Roel Johnson in studio too, sir. So if you don't mind, Roel.
Yeah, I know Vincent well. Just a clarification, Vincent. The 207 names, and we're getting mixed information about this. 207 names that were submitted to the chair and that were forwarded to the police, of which 172 were returned. Did the commission receive evidence that these people voted? Either all of them or any particular ones?
My understanding of what has occurred is as follows. That in the work of the workstation, a particular political party sought to get clarification in the workstation about serial numbers for which their corresponding votes cast. So that they went away from that process with serial numbers, indicating that the names associated with these serial numbers, votes were cast for them. No, they didn't come away with names. They came away with serial numbers. But the extent to which they have at their disposal the OLE is the extent to which they can then determine the names. And through that process of determination, they then, I think, made those submissions of the persons who, according to them, are alleged to have been out of the country but to have been voted for. So it's those names that were sent, as I understand it, to immigrations.
Yeah.
And immigration then have responded to him. Of these names which you have sent to us, these are the ones that all records show were out of the country at the time.
Let me just read from one of the letters that were sent to the chair by Mr. Harmon, APNU AFC election agent, signed. And this is the critical part. I hereby supply a forwarded list of electors listed in the appendix to this letter who were not in Guyana as at the 2nd of March and were recorded as voted. So this is a fairly definitive statement. And attached to that is we have a list of 310 names, polling divisions, polling stations, ballot box, serial numbers, as far as the people's date of birth. So this is fairly definitive information. As our reporting has shown,
the list to which you have just referred, GECOM has not said anything, nor to my knowledge, has not received any information on that list to date.
No, but this list, the language in the letter I just read is identical to the language in the first letter, which has 207 names, which were forwarded to the commissioner, of which 172 were returned as confirmed as not being in the country. Our reporting has shown, as of I think today's report, that 14 of those people, of that original 172, were in fact in the country.
14 of the 172.
Of the 172.
So two things have happened here. You are therefore suggesting that you have accessed the 172.
Yeah, we have a copy of the 172 that was returned.
You access the 172.
We have the list.
And that 14 of the 172 are in the country.
And were in the country as of election day.
They were in the country. My response will be this. the chief immigration officer is the legitimate source of that information.
Uh-huh.
And anyone who disagrees with that information, the onus is on that person to show that the chief immigration officer has presented incorrect information.
Oh, we have. We've posted, and we've personally checked people's passport pages, issued.
Has that information been sent to GECOM?
No, we've published it. I mean, I'm not sure that we have a role.
To me, publishing is not a source. GECOM cannot go to the newspapers and make a determination based on that. If we were to do that, then we would determine who is dead by the announcements.
But Mr. Alexander, let us just take a step back. If Kaitor News had not done that, would GECOM then had taken the commissioner's report as sacrosanct?
GECOM will take what the chief immigration officer sends to us as official and correct information, unless otherwise determined.
Okay, and one last question to you on that, in that stead. If you would have sought, if GECOM would have sought evidence from the immigration officer, wouldn't that evidence therefore, like if you were to ask for evidence, you're taking ownership of a court, wouldn't that evidence therefore have to be examined and cross-examined for veracity and for everything else that you would have when dealing with evidences?
Chief immigration officer is the official source of that information. And I want to make a correction here because I've seen misreporting on this one. Under Regulation 40 of the National Registration Act, which the report that sought to speak to the matter said only has 27 sections, and therefore was questioning how we could refer to a 40. The 40 is not a part of the act per se, it's the 40th regulation. Has the authority to acquire that information routinely and is authorized routinely to act on that information. It is similar to GECOM routinely receiving information on the dead and acting on that information because it is coming from an official source which the law authorizes GECOM to access from and to use in its processes.
But if I may, but even though you take that information from those sources, you still have, in normal course of an elections, you still have claims and objection period that allows the vetting of that information regardless of where it comes from.
The claim of objection does not provide for what you have just referred to in that. What the claims and objection provides for is if someone's name is not on the list. It's not to question why you're not on the list. It is to say I'm presenting myself to be on the list. It doesn't provide to question why the person was taken off of the list. It provides for the person to turn up and to say, I've checked the list, my name is not there, I'm presenting myself.
Okay. The other thing, sir, is coming back to because as you know, this forms the conversation across the country. So thanks for these clarifications. But coming back to the basis upon which GECOM went to seek evidence, weren't those just allegations? I mean, the chairman said the chairman basically said, if APNO or PPP makes an allegation, you must prove it. However, the chairman took unfounded allegations and went to seek evidence on her own. The commission went beyond.
I think you're adjectively wrong.
Okay.
To say the chairman take unfounded allegations is to conclude about those allegations. The chairman took allegations to determine if they're founded.
But the chairman said that but the chairman said that you who bring the allegation has to prove it. But now you have taken a different.
The chairman said that you who bring the allegation, you might remember in the workstation, what they merely did was to say, we have information that this person is out of the country. That's what they said. They then sent information, in which information they sought to specify what is it they were saying about the persons in question. What the chairman has essentially done is to verify if what they said is in fact true.
So the chairman has basically sought the evidence based on the complaints from one of the stakeholders.
The chairman has sought to verify the evidence presented. Is the evidence admissible or not? It's admissible because it has been verified to be true.
But that's the next question I had for you. Isn't that in the first place admissible evidence now non-admissible because the public space has proven that a particular percentage of that so-called verified thing coming from the immigration department is now not correct?
That will become a matter of contention, not because of what the public space has said. The public space can say what it feels like saying. But that will become a matter of contention. If the persons affected say it's the GECOM, not the public space. The public space, anything can happen in the public space. If one bothers with the public space, I shouldn't be talking to you, I should be dead.
But Mr. Alexander, you didn't ask those persons to verify whether they're here or not. So how can they now come to you and say I'm here? If Kaiser News hadn't done that, people wouldn't have known that they're reported to you as not being in the country.
GECOM has processing. GECOM has commission. And undoubtedly, when the information is brought to the commissioner, processes in that regard would unfold. We have commissioners who in the past, during all of these processes, would say, give us the names so we can make a determination, we can do a field check and all of that. So that information on the face of it at this point in time is acceptable.
Yeah,
the commission has not yet deliberated, and it's a commission in which there is the scope for commissioners to say, stop, let's go and check this, probably from another angle, before we go forward. And this is not unprecedented. It's happened every time we have done these recently verifications in the field. The commissioners ask, give us a list. We'll come back and say whether we agree based on our own field determination. So that, people have said in the past that the system has worked. I would say this way, this time, the system has not been worked out. So there is still scope for the system to work.
Okay.
All right.
Roll 1 second. Okay. My last question to you, and then, I know that we promised you 30 minutes. I'm sorry. My last question to you, Commissioner, is as follows. Shouldn't GECOM then, now that they are aware that, that there is a problem with that 172 names,
there's an alleged problem.
Okay. Shouldn't GECOM or would Commissioner Vincent Alexander, as one of the commission, would you move that GECOM thoroughly investigate that the entire list rather than rely on its singular source?
The singular source is the authentic source. If some interested party, and a matter like this is a matter that allows even third parties, because it has possible impact on an election, which is everybody's interest. Therefore, third parties, other than the original persons who are affected, are authorized in this circumstance to come to GECOM, saying we have a problem with what GECOM has said, and therefore we're asking GECOM to look into the matter. I'm quite sure that GECOM will be obligated to do so. But GECOM will not be obligated to do so because a newspaper has published. GECOM will be getting itself into all sorts of issues if GECOM including the fact that one of the names in the newspaper apparently published, somebody has written to say, hey, take me out of that. I was overseas.
Oh.
Somebody has written to GECOM saying that.
Oh,
I was overseas.
Let me just respond to the and for clarification. I see people are saying that Kaichur News messed up on that occasion.
Did what?
They say that Kaichur News messed up on the that's completely untrue. Kaichur News.
You notice I haven't said anything about Kaichur.
But
I've responded to what you said about information in the public domain.
Yeah, well,
I haven't.
Well,
and I've said that what information is in the public domain, wherever it is, and you have said it's there.
Yeah.
One of those persons has said that leave me out of this.
Oh yeah, easily. But that person is not responding to any media reporting that they were out of the country. What the person is responding to is a guy called Adlabino. He's responding to the appearance of his name on the list of the 172 people that we just published. And that list didn't come from Kaichur News. It came originally from the coalition, and then from the
coalition doesn't have the 172.
No, they
I don't know.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying
GECOM got the 172.
No, the 172 came from a list provided to GECOM, the GECOM chair, from a list
and not all of the 172.
Oh no, yeah, no,
officers out of the country.
What am I explaining? The 172 came from the list of 207, provided by the coalition to GECOM. GECOM then forwarded that list to the chief immigration officer, who then confirmed that of that 207, 172 were confirmed as being out of the country. The person who said that they were out of the country, there was no reporting to say that they were in the country. They weren't part of the subset of people that any reporting said. So
why is it that he would write the letter which he wrote that suggested that it had been reported, and that he is objecting to that?
Because the letter he wrote said that he saw his name on the list of people who were said to be out of the country but recorded as have voted. That allegation was made by the coalition.
Where he saw this list?
He saw the list as part of the general list provided originally from the coalition and then extracted by the chief immigration officer. So there was no allegation that he was in the country by any reporting.
I'm just trying to understand how he arrived at the need to write a letter.
Oh, that's for him. We have no idea. The original reporting by Kaichur News cited 3 people. 2 of them we named. One who we verified, but who wished to remain anonymous. He was not one of those people. So his issue really has to do with the coalition saying that he was represented as voted. And I think he was concerned that somebody voted on his behalf when he was out of the country, as alleged, but not proven by the coalition by virtue of the original list. Now, with regard to
why not proven if the source of their list would be what came out of the stations using the serial numbers?
No. This is what we published was a document given or purportedly given to the chair, and then we published another document that was purportedly returned to the chair
The document given to the chair,
Uh-huh.
it's sourced.
The source was
as I understand it, would have been
the chief immigration.
the listing of persons by serial number.
No, it was
in the workstation.
no.
They were set to have voted.
No, that's incorrect. What was given was a very detailed document that again featured as much as the person's date of birth, polling division, polling number, and serial number.
Yeah. But what's the origin?
Yeah.
What's the origin? The origin of that would have been that serial number. You see, because once you get the serial number, then you can go to the OLE, which is a public document.
Of course, yeah. Well, I'm saying
the other information that you're referring to.
Yeah, but I'm saying the source of the information wasn't the media. The source of the information was originally first the coalition, then extracted from that list the chief immigration officer or deputy chief immigration officer.
I'm leaving this program with a question.
Yeah.
As to where did Adler Bino get his intimation that caused him to write the letter?
The list produced the list produced by the chief immigration officer in response to the original list, which we had as a source document and we published in general, but there was no claim.
All right, so you got it in the newspapers.
Yes, but from a source document that the purported.
I'm not
they have not denied. In fact, they've confirmed that it's their document.
But Mr. Alexander, it is a fact that the police commissioner responded accepting that those people may be in the country, but they may be so illegally. In other words, he is basically taking a step back. So maybe he's
giving clarification. He said that, look, my information is the official information of people who have left this country. If somebody left the country illegally, or returned illegally, he would not have that information.
Well, in some cases, these people never traveled. In our reporting, they never even traveled.
So Mr. Alexander, what should be the next step?
Those people or any interested party, because elections is everybody's interest, should come forward to GECOM and say, we are submitting information that contradicts what has been presented to you, and therefore we're asking you to make a final determination.
But in that case, who would the burden of proof fall on? The immigration authority?
No. Hear what is happening here. The immigration authority has a legal function. They're claiming they've carried out their legal function. If someone is claiming that in carrying out the legal function they've erred, that person has the burden of proof.
Okay. Mr. Alexander, I know you have to go, sir. Thank you. I do certainly look forward for a continuation of this chat sometime next week, if you don't mind. I know you're busy. My final thing to you is that, if you can, as we have said to Mr. Sesgunraj too, on behalf of the Guyanese public, the Secretariat is working very hard at this time. One cannot imagine what people are going through to keep a mask on all day and all night to keep that recount going. We certainly look forward to the next 4 to 5 days with great interest as we look to an end of this. And I'm looking forward to your return maybe next week, Monday or Tuesday. Give me your timing, sir.
I will avail myself once it's convenient.
Good.
I don't shy away from facing the protest state, and I try when I face the protest state to be factual and accurate.
And he is true, Yogi is true. He doesn't shy away.
Oh, it's true. Thank you, Commissioner Alexander. Thank you, and have a great night, sir.
Thank you very much.